Today, there is no doubt that the economic center of gravity of the world has shifted to Asia. And as the global economy shifts to Asia, Canada's economy is experiencing new and increasing economic activity in the Western provinces. Asia's growth is breathtaking. China and India alone represent, of course, a third of the world's population, and their economies are expected to grow at an annual rate of more than 3 times that of Canada over the next 5 years. Since 1995, the average income in India has quadrupled. In China, average income has increased tenfold. Today, China is building a new skyscraper every 5 days and doubling the number of cars on its roads every 4 years. This immense economic growth will drive the demand for Canadian energy, materials, foods, technologies, and financial services, and as emerging middle classes are established in these countries, high-end consumer goods also from Canada. But to do so, to seize the opportunity before us, we must look within. For several years now, we've heard many discussions about a national energy strategy. Alberta and Saskatchewan, after years and billions in investments, are producing oil and gas to feed a hungry world for energy. But we can't get it efficiently to market. Too much production, coupled with limited options to get the product out to those that demand it, has hammered the price of Canadian oil. Our inability to get our oil to world markets discounts Canadian crude by more than $30 a barrel off the world price and costs Canada an estimated $2.5 billion in revenue a month. This lack of infrastructure is limiting the wealth generation of Western Canada. It is hampering the creation of jobs and billions in tax revenues that could pay for roads, schools, and health care across the entire country. This is part of the reason why the debate on Canadian pipelines has been so heated. To some proponents, a national energy strategy means simply a way to get our oil to market, and pipelines are the primary tool. But let me pause, step back, and object to this debate as being framed as a national energy strategy, because I think it's myopic. The opportunity before us is not simply to supply Asia with oil. The true opportunity is Asia's rapid economic growth writ large, and all of the opportunities that arise from it. It's not just about energy, it's about our grains, potash, uranium from Saskatchewan, it's about financial services from our world-class banks, it's our technology, our design and engineering services, our advanced manufacturing from Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces. It is not a national energy strategy that we should be talking about. What we need is a national economic strategy, period. If we do not engage more fully with China, India, Singapore, Vietnam, and the rest of the Asia Pacific, our economy will stagnate. Seeking out and reorienting Canada's economy more towards Asia is and must be a national imperative. So what do? A plan, a strategy, any strategy really, has many facets that need to work together. Like flying the space shuttle, you need everyone from the technicians to the mission commander to be working together. If even one person fails to do their job, the mission can be in jeopardy. If Canada is to succeed in driving a new vision of engagement with Asia, many pieces are required, and only when all of the pieces work together will we succeed. In my mind, there are 4 key components that Canada must address. First, embracing trade and attracting foreign investment. Secondly, investing in transportation infrastructure. Third, protecting our environment through science and evidence-based research. And fourth, partnering with our Aboriginal communities with respect and focusing on our mutual interests. First of all, as I said, we must be open to the world. Canada must be open to trade, and we must be open to foreign investment. Canada must become part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and open new trade opportunities with Asian nations. Further, we must ensure that we remain open to foreign investment. If Canada wishes to succeed in opening businesses in Asia, we must also be open to Asian investment in Canada. To develop our oil sands and other developments, we will need foreign cash. Canada's capital markets are simply too small. In this respect, I fundamentally disagree with Stephen Harper's approach. I would have outlined clear, transparent foreign investment rules a long time ago, as he promised over 2 years ago, in order to give markets certainty. Rules that clearly define and protect Canadian interests and provide potential investors with certainty. I would have used the CNOC-Nexen deal not to create more and murky barriers to foreign investment, but to lever greater opportunities for Canadian companies and open up investment opportunities for financial services or other Canadian investments. We need to ensure that Canada is playing on a level playing field. Make no mistake, after the CNOC-Nexen deal, Canada's foreign investment rules are no clearer, and that is bad for business. We need leaders who are bold, willing to take a stand, and willing to discuss policy options with Canadians. That is the type of leadership that I am offering. Secondly, we must invest in our transportation infrastructure to reorient our economy towards Asia from right here, the west coast of British Columbia. This will be Canada's doorway, our Pacific gateway. If Canada's economic success depends on our engagement with Asia, British Columbia will be the hub, the gateway to our success, and our western provinces will be the principal suppliers of export products. Among many things, this necessitates the need for pipelines, the need to improve our rail infrastructure, our ports, and our shipping infrastructure. This means a thorough rail service review to ensure our rail service across the West is reliable and efficient. It means focusing our investment from the Western Economic Development Agency, Public-Private Partnerships Canada, and Infrastructure Canada, all those programs to enhance our shipping routes and ports to get our grain, oil, and manufactured goods to markets. This means continual investment in the Canadian Border Services Agency, in next-generation security infrastructure. It means we must respect the right to strike, but also work together with determination to find long-term labor peace in the gateway. It means government creating an environment that encourages the private sector to make new investments in grading and inspection facilities, in ships and in shipbuilding capacity, and ultimately in job creation. Third, we must respect the environment, and our decisions must be based on science and evidence. In no uncertain terms, economic growth cannot simply be allowed to occur unfettered, without consideration for the environment. To Canadians, it is quite simply unacceptable. Enbridge has learned this the hard way on the Northern Gateway pipeline. My views on the pipeline will be evidence-based. I will reserve judgment until the scientific assessment of risk is completed. There are still many questions that need to be answered. As a man of science and evidence, I cannot do any less. But let us be clear, Canadians and British Columbians have little tolerance for obfuscation with regards to the environment. Environmental sustainability and environmental engagement are no longer nice to do, they are necessary. Today, the federal government is in damage control mode after talking about radical environmentalist groups. Millions of dollars are now being spent by pipeline companies to fix the public relations damage because they failed to gain the confidence of citizens. The failure to adequately address environmental sustainability is not only bad for the environment, it's bad for business. American attack ads such as Alberta's dirty oil and the opposition to the Keystone Pipeline are evidence of that. We can no longer afford to consider environmental sustainability as just a cost. It is an investment if we want to get our products to world markets. But let me be equally clear that we cannot simply use the environment as a stop sign to all development. There is a balance. If we are to become a major shipping hub to Asia, we must invest to protect the environment in order to facilitate development. That means understanding the science of an oil spill and doing everything possible to avoid one. It also means enhancing our marine capabilities to tackle oil spills should they ever occur, and ensuring that sufficient funds are also set aside to cover the cost of a cleanup. Environmental assessments are not nuisances in the path of economic development. Environmental assessments, if done efficiently and transparently, are investments, tools to facilitate stronger relations between communities and businesses. That is why I oppose and would reverse many of Stephen Harper's changes to Canada's environmental protection laws. Environmental assessments are critical tools to achieve the approval of Canadians and the moral authority required to move forward on development. In making our decisions, we must look to science, not politics and ideology, and we must certainly not be swayed by the bullying tactics of ministers from Ottawa. Fourth, across Canada, we must do more to address the needs of our Aboriginal peoples. In recent days, we have seen anger and protest from Aboriginal peoples across the land. The relationship between the Crown and Aboriginal peoples has deteriorated. Trust and goodwill between the two have evaporated. And this mistrust affects us all. As we grow, particularly in the West, development will increasingly encroach on Aboriginal lands, rights, and titles. Further, we must recognize the demographic reality. By 2015, 1 in 5 of Saskatchewan's residents will be Aboriginal. In Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and many other areas across the West, Aboriginal peoples will soon represent a major factor in the workforce. This is the youngest and fastest growing sector of the Canadian population that can no longer be ignored. We need them to succeed here in Canada. We cannot talk about an economic strategy without talking about the success of Aboriginal peoples. We must change our thinking. We must come to the realization that our national economic success is tied to Aboriginal success and the stewardship of the environment. As a massive proportion of our labor force, as a key owner and stakeholder in resource development and the protection of our environment, Aboriginal peoples must be partners in our economic success, or none of us will succeed. Make no mistake, we are failing at this task as it stands right now. The Idle No More campaign is a manifestation of people who are incredibly frustrated, and the First Nations have reached that tipping point. Less than a month ago, I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister stating, and I quote, "Our words must not be empty." Remember, in 2008, with the residential schools apology, he, the Prime Minister, I, and all Canadians, I believe, made a commitment to Aboriginal peoples to engage in a new beginning, a new dialogue based on respect and engagement, resource revenue sharing, the stewardship and the protection of the environment, and Aboriginal rights and titles must be addressed. We must work together with these constitutionally recognized peoples and forge a path into the future based on mutual respect. That requires consultation when we in Ottawa make laws. That requires a mutual agreement on what our Aboriginal obligations entail. Only when Aboriginal peoples and all Canadians are united and true partners in the economic success of Canada will we find a path forward. Open markets, investment in infrastructure, environmental sustainability, and partnership with our Aboriginal peoples. Those are the four topics that I brought up today. Like a stool with four legs, all four legs are needed for Canada to succeed. Without all four, any strategy falls down. Without our environmental sustainability or the